Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. This is East Coast Adventures with the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mary.
And we have a special guest with us today who has ran over 1,000 races in total between all of the distances. His staggering numbers here is he has ran 377 ultras, and he's ran over almost close to 200 marathons. Michael Montgomery started running in the early 80s, I assume is what we were talking about. Mike, if you don't care, will you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running?
Well, my running career, so to speak, began in 1982. I was a very avid racquetball player and other things, and I was not fond of running at all. But there was a fellow from California, and his wife moved in across the street, and he was a runner. And he asked me if I'd like to begin running, and I thought, well, probably not, but I gave it a try. And it was just several weeks later that we were running a 5K, and that was in 1982. And that year I ran 65 races, mostly 5Ks, 10Ks, and it was every single weekend, sometimes Saturday and Sunday, all the holidays, obviously. And I just kept going. But he got me into it. We are still in contact with one another. He lives in Oregon right now. He worked for Nike for many, many years, for which we were all fans years and years ago, when they were probably the most prominent running company, back in those days. Anyway, about myself, I worked in the field of criminal justice for 31 years. And during that time, I taught at the college level as I had a master's degree. But when I retired from my criminal justice career, and that is in running prisons and jails and that kind of thing, and let me tell you, that's a very high-stress job, and running was my way just to think through all the issues and problems and so on that I encountered on a daily basis. Anyway, so I started doing marathons, and I said, my gosh, this is fun. And I was doing 20 a year, 25 a year, and nobody was doing too many at that time. But I wasn't doing any ultras. I thought, who in the world could do this? I mean, who could? And of course, as you know, many people still think that today, even people that do ultras. But anyway, when I retired, I went back and got my PhD. And let me tell you, I was 57. And I got my PhD in 3 years. And so I've been teaching full-time now. I'm a full professor at this time at TSU, and I teach criminal justice. So that gives me a lot of time to train in the morning and all that kind of stuff, which I love. And I'm one of these folks, I would just share with you, if I never ran another race, I'd still run. I enjoy it. To be honest with you, I'm not that big into the health benefits or all that. I just enjoy it. I meet a lot of people like you have over your running career, wonderful folks all over the United States. Lots of race directors, because I keep going back to the same races like many of us do. And but that's kind of how I got into it. And again, that's pretty much myself. Now, I'm 77 currently, and I guess most folks know there's not a whole lot of us out there still doing ultras. There are some, and a good number of them are faster than I and do longer distances and so on. But I'm not done yet. I feel very good health-wise. I'm still going to continue. There's no question in my mind that I'll have 400 ultras in early next year, maybe January or February. And I might just plan it out and take one of my favorite races and just plan that I'm going to do that for my 400. And it used to be in the older days when I was getting my 100th and my 200th and 300th, I would contact my good friend, Rob Apple, who would always follow me there, and off we would go. And now I'm trying to do the same with him. And of course, he's got just inconceivably more than twice than what I have, which is just amazing for any human being to do that. So that's pretty much how I got into it. And again, I'm not over yet. I'm going to keep going. I've signed up for races here already into September. So like most folks, I'm planning to continue doing this. Hey, I would say this, though, for all the older runners that might be interested. Needless to say, why I still run, I could hardly be called a runner these days. I can still beat folks out there. Matter of fact, I haven't been last in any event yet. But that day's probably coming. But as long as I can make the time cutoffs, I'm going to keep going, folks. Just hopefully, I'll make it. And luckily, I have a wife who is concerned about my health, and she makes sure I eat the right things and the right vitamins and all the other kinds of stuff to keep my health in shape. So there you go.
Well, I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that if you just do the quick math, you've been running for 40 years. Mm. You've done over 1,000 races, and I've seen you in races, and you do run.
He does.
You race, and I think that is super special, and I also think it's pretty impressive that you've been able to stay healthy and not get hurt in a 40-year running career for someone that probably runs every day of their life.
Pretty much. Well, I've run 3:12 marathon, 3 hour and 12-minute marathon, which is pretty fast. And again, see, I didn't start till I was 35. So, I got kind of a late start. Although I'm beginning to wonder from a research standpoint if that isn't so bad. Because the ones that started when they were 20, it seems like they're having all the, issues with their bones and their ligaments and so on and so forth. So who knows?
Well, you're doing something right.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a little proof in what you're saying right here, because you're living proof. And I think that's pretty awesome. And another thing that I just got to go back and ask, your first year running, you ran 65 races. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, 65 in the first year. Now,
so you didn't just learn. You just jumped right in.
Yeah. Well, now, back in those days, this is 1982. There were a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks, 5-milers, 8Ks, believe it or not, and all of that kind of thing. And again, back in 1982, there was kind of a prevailing feeling in all the journals and the medical people, don't run more than 2 marathons a year. Yep. You can run one in the spring and one in the fall, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
But shortly thereafter, I started picking them up, and when I was doing 20 a year, people said, "No way, you can't do 20 a year." And when I was doing 38 a year, I kind of proved them different. So.
Well, yeah, it's almost every month.
You did 38 marathons in 1 year.
Week.
Well, a lot of them were ultras, but
well, still, I mean, that's crazy.
David alluded to this. Have you ever had an injury, like an injury that's taken you out?
Yeah, Mary Kate, I've had every injury known to running.
I was going to say that would be wild if you hadn't, but yeah.
Well, but you have to realize and I'm much better at this now. When you are you know that you're injured and you're getting bad, you know, this whole business about running through it and all that, well, that's fine, but you have to have some common sense here to say, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if I want to continue running for a longer period of time, I've got to handle this a little better. And, you know, you got to step away from races and the really long ones and so on. But I have found that they all go away. They go.
Yeah.
Plantar fasciitis, I had it one time for 3 years.
Wow.
And, you know, and all we did was we taped our arches and all of that. And one day I woke up and went out and I said, hey, I'm feeling pretty good today. And by golly,
Mhm.
it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, hips, knees, ankles, all of it, folks. I mean, it's just, and dehydration. And I used to throw up after every race. Uh,
These guys are
Matt likes
pro
to
at
throw
throwing
up
up,
in the
yeah.
race.
Yeah.
And
Throw up
pretty
in the
much
race.
because I did it Saturday.
Did you really?
Hey, dude, mile 41, everybody saw me puking, and then I just started running again.
Did you slap yourself?
No, I didn't have to.
Should have slapped yourself.
Well, and, you know, I've done early marathons where I didn't know what a salt tablet was. I said, what is this? We didn't have all that, you know.
Yeah, so for a man that goes and runs 65 races his first year and then turns around and wants to run like 38 marathons, I have two questions. Because this is probably in the 80s, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What did you use for electrolytes? And when did you discover chafing was a problem? And what did you use? Because there was no salty britches or like anything
No.
back then. So
It's all
I'm
Vaseline.
just
I
curious.
still use it today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Vaseline is what you used on your back end and between your legs, you know, because and sometimes under your arms, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's all we had. Now, in terms of, I didn't know what a salt tablet was. I said, what? I was in Vietnam in 1969, and we had to take these great big old salt. I mean, they were salt. That's all they were. They weren't all electrolytes, but. And I thought, my goodness, you mean we have to take those big old things? And no, it was Rob who got me. He said, Mike, you need to start taking. And this is hard to believe. Back in the early days, folks, you know, before the technology boom, when we had no garments, we had no, you know, none of the technology for the fabulous shoes that we're wearing today. And you know all the watches and just everything that we had none of that, and we depended upon what we read in the journals that existed at that time: Runner's World, Running Times, Running Journal, which was published in Greensville, Tennessee. I don't know if it's still going or not, but those are the only things that we had. And every now and again, a doctor, if they were running, they would kind of give us some tips. But we didn't eat breakfast. Off we went, and that's yeah. And you never carried water, you except in ultras. Now you definitely carried water there. But guess what? That's all we had. We didn't have all this stuff that you put into them today. You know, Gatorade certainly came along, and my goodness, we had that probably for 10 years before somebody got smart and thought this is a great idea, you know, to have electrolytes in your drink and all of that. So,
You just saw all them Michael Jordan commercials and started drinking Gatorade, right?
well, that, yes. And you know, when they poured it over the coach after the football game,
Yep.
All right. One more question for the 80s. I just got to ask this too.
sure.
Could you run with music? Was there any way to run with music?
The old Walkmans.
Well, yeah, but Walkman came out a little bit later than we. You had a transistor radio if you wanted to run, but I got to tell you, nobody did that I could even think of. No one did it. Now, when Walkman came out, yes, there were a lot of folks, but I will say, oddly enough, there were very strict rules about wearing any of that. You know, we didn't have you didn't wear headphones and all that kind of stuff, but even one ear earplug, no, you weren't to wear any of that. No dogs, no radios, certainly no radios without earplugs, which we have nowadays, people running along. So it was a little different then, but it wasn't bothersome. And of course, the shoes were all different. We had no shoes that were heavily cushioned, or like we had no Hokas and, all of that. It was
Nike
kangaroos,
waffles.
Nikes. Yeah, Nike waffles was the big one. Yeah.
What year did you get your first GPS watch? Because I remember I used to drive off in a car distances so that I would know how far I needed to run. So I don't remember what year I got my first Garmin. Do you remember?
No, but I didn't get my first Garmin until after 2000.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of expensive, and I thought, well, I don't need that. Hey, and it's interesting. I used to pace a lot of marathons here at all over the place, and I had a pretty good sense of how far a mile was, and could click it off pretty well. Hey, but just think about this: we wore Timex watches. That was it, and you could start, and it would tell you how far or how fast how much time you've run, but not how far. No, no distance, no heart rates. My goodness, no heart rate for sure. But
you knew your heart rate when you threw up, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how it works. Maybe I started out too fast.
It dawned on me. You know what? I seem to throw up more when it's hot, or if you're running hard. So
that's when you pull out that military salt block.
There you go. Yeah. These horse pills. My goodness, they were big.
I can see Mike getting out of his car with a salt block. It's a regular water bottle, I would assume, and a jar of Vaseline.
Well, I don't think they had plastic water bottles. What did you use for a water bottle? I know some people used to use like syrup containers. That's like syrup bottles.
Any kind of bottle would do. Now remember, they didn't even have bottled water back in, as far as
right.
I can remember.
Yeah.
And you couldn't throw them on you throw something out and you're off. You are pulled out. You're gone. No, nobody trashed back those. But that's a good question. Of course, in a marathon, you don't have to worry because there's always water every couple of miles, if there is water. So, and
yeah, and
today,
I guess aid stations were just like water, right? Like there was just water, maybe like a banana.
100%. And even Goo, which there was just one brand, it was called Goo. But you got those at mile 8, mile 15, mile 20, whatever. Maybe if you're lucky, you get 3 of them.
Oh.
So people now carry pockets full,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would die without some type of energy gel.
Did you ever eat a power bar? Do you remember power bars? That's what I used to eat before every track meet. And those were so gross, but they were the best thing at the time.
The power bar was the only one.
I know.
So you ate the power bar,
yeah.
Could you feel it?
Hopefully, you might even get one along the way. But but we ate graham crackers. That was our power bar in the early years. Those kinds of things. So
those are great ideas now. Like graham crackers sound good.
So, like back to Mary's question though, I'm just curious. Like for a longer race, when you did have to run, what did you use as a water bottle? What was your go-to? What'd you carry it in?
Well, when it was, I didn't start doing ultras till 1999. And of course, by that time, there were water bottles.
Yeah.
Now we could carry a squeezed water bottle, of course, but you didn't have hydration packs and all that stuff. That came a little bit later. So again, for those that are just starting out, just to think of the wonderful things, and I think about what else is coming. What else is coming? And the shoes that are designed, the rocker style and all of that. I love the fact that our sport brings out a lot of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And other sports, we adopt their innovations that are helpful. And of course, electrolytes and all that are all part of it, so.
Mm-hmm.
And my goodness, look at the choices we have today for ultra food and all of that.
Yeah, we're pretty spoiled, I think.
Yeah. But some races, they're very, there's not a whole lot available. Other races are just, I mean, you've got chocolate covered cherries and every other thing. So,
Yeah, but you just don't see the bowl of M&Ms anymore that has Vaseline like scraped on the side where someone has like grabbed a
The
handful
double
of them
dip.
and like ate them. Those are gone since COVID. I miss the M&M bowl.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I missed that.
Well,
Yeah, I'm glad.
I mean,
Oh,
if you had enough Vaseline on your hand, you just kind of dipped it in the bowl and kept going.
well, you mentioned COVID, and I was thinking the other day, what more permanent kinds of changes to our sport resulted from COVID? And they don't put the M&Ms in a giant bowl anymore. They're still in these little tiny containers.
yeah.
And
Yes.
in the past, you just reached in there and grabbed a bunch. And the potato chips, the same way. Everybody was digging their hand in the bag. That was kind of
Oh
odd.
yeah, it was community bowls. I
Yeah,
mean, for
there you go.
sure. And there was never a thought in my mind, because when you're in a 100-mile race and you walk up and you see a bowl of M&Ms, you're not worried about whose hand's been in there. You're like, oh, I need food.
Yeah.
You just grab it. But now you sit back and you think like, that probably was kind of gross.
Well, you just never know today. But let's hope that COVID, the likelihood of something like that coming back, I guess, is pretty good. But let's just hope it doesn't affect us so badly.
I want to ask you one more question about the 80s, and maybe these guys have a couple more, but I have one more for you, because that number to me is staggering. Like, to do 65 races in your first year. How much work was that? Because I got to think, that's more than a race a week. How much work was that to even fill out an application to get into that race? Because there is no website to even sign up for these things. So,
There
like,
were no
did you
websites.
spend like every week just filling out letters and applications?
And see, back in those days, of course, we didn't have computers. You didn't have ultra sign up or any of that. Everything was paper, and you sent it in with a check. And so just to find out where one was quite a chore. And so if you went to any YMCA, if it belonged to something, or a workout club or any of that kind of thing, luckily somebody would drop off some, and then you would find, there's a race next weekend. Hey, and back in those days, every single holiday, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Halloween, Valentine's Day, there were always races, or several. I was lucky enough to be living in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a large city, or Cincinnati. I lived there, a big city, so there were opportunities all the time. But let me tell you, there was nothing to running a 5K in the morning, and then, hey, on the same day at 4 o'clock, here's a 10K. Hot dog. Let's go. And back in those days, we were running 18 minutes for 5Ks and 38 minutes for 10Ks and all of that. And hey, no big deal. It's just that you didn't put in the miles that of course they're putting in now. Although for the ultra runners back in those days, hey, 100 miles a week is normal stuff. But there was enough sense to know you're not going to run a race pace on all those miles. You're going to do that a couple of times a week. The rest of them are slow distance. I forgot what we call it now. Slow, well, whatever. Anyway, it was slow.
I like to call it slogging.
Is it the LSD, the long, slow distance?
LSD, that's right. Long, slow distance. Yep, that's right. Thank you.
I'm older than these guys too, so I feel like I remember that. So
oddly enough, LSD
He's
was
not that much
still floating
older.
around in those days.
No.
Yeah, in terms of running age, me and Matt's pretty young because we both started very, very later in life. Well, I guess Matt didn't. Matt started running in high school, but you didn't really get into ultras till.
Yeah, I didn't get into ultras until was it 2020?
Yeah,
COVID?
and I didn't start ultras till like 2017, 2018. I mean, I didn't even start running until 2015.
Yep, 2020 was the first year.
Yeah.
So you and Mary are the OGs. We're me and Matt's the young guys over here. We're still learning all the wrong things to do.
Yeah, I started running in the very early 90s. So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. 1999, my first one was Mountain Mist, which is in Huntsville, Alabama. Still infamous run, a terrific race, and well done. Dink Taylor does a great job down there. But anyway, they had a tornado the night before. So there were tree limbs broken off and water every which way, puddles. And this was my first one. Well, the first thing I did, I fell backwards into a puddle. And I said, well, if that happens again, this will be my last ultra. And I ran on a little ways longer, and I stabbed my thigh with a branch, and it went right to the bone.
Oh my!
And I pulled it out, and I was bleeding like crazy. And all I remember saying is, great, I'm going to win first blood or best blood. And they had an award for the person with the best blood. Oh yeah, it practically filled my shoe up. But
hey, let's put that in on the race.
Someone else had a thumb that was a compound fracture, and they won the award. And I thought,
still didn't get it.
Yeah. No,
that's ultra running though, right? Like you can get stabbed in the leg, and it's still not the worst thing that happened to somebody. Yeah.
Hey, maybe we should put that in our races. Best
blood. Well,
and
then there was another one I ran in Alabama that the day before, they had a great big forest fire. And this was called Black Warrior 50K. Maybe you've heard of it, Black Warrior. Anyway, and they had to have volunteers standing next to certain trees that were ready to fall over. And as we were running down the trail, they'd say, watch out, this tree's ready to go any minute. and so, yeah.
Mary needs that in her races.
I know. Yeah.
I just can't believe that they didn't cancel those races. A forest fire and a tornado.
Hey, we didn't cancel them. You just didn't cancel.
Yeah. So Mary never got that treatment in Yeti. You heard about her story, right?
Well, no.
So a few years ago, that's why she went back to Yeti last year. But well, go ahead, Mary. You can tell him.
We had a hurricane come in during Yeti. That year we called the race the Yeti Cane, and Jason, he closed the top of the race up to White Top because the winds were too bad. But he turned us around down about 7 miles down below that, and I still got hit in the head with a tree. I was about 70 miles in. I got knocked unconscious. Somebody found me. So yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, well, it was rough.
Whenever it's windy and you're going through the woods, we all know that a branch could break loose at any time. As a matter of fact, surely it's happened to you on occasion that even in a heavy rain, you can hear a crash.
Yes.
Beside you, it'd be a big, heavy branch that fell. But
you hear a crash and I'm around. It's usually me falling.
That's true.
Yeah.
You better run for me to pick me up.
There's something about the name David and falling.
Yeah.
David Compton, David Kyle, they fall like crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't fall once at Yeti this past
Well, I
weekend.
wish I'd have kept a record of how many times I've fallen. And you can fall on the craziest places. There's no tree around. There's no roots. There's nothing. And you just hit something wrong and off you go.
I know some of my worst falls have been in the flattest area where I'm not paying attention, and I'm just like all of a sudden I'm like I'm on the ground.
Yeah.
That's not what I saw. Yours is pretty technical. It looked pretty scary when you fell. Like, this dude's hurt.
Hey, when you fall and when you've missed a turn and you fall, you got a double whammy there. That makes you mad. So I probably wouldn't have fallen if I'd have been on the right trail.
What got you going to your first ultra? Like at what point did you decide, okay, well, I ran, 150 marathons at this point. I think I can go further.
Well, that was
When did you finally turn
that
into an
was in
ultra?
1999, and I had run 19 marathons that year, and I thought, hey, here's this Rob. I used to look up I still look up to Rob. He's taller than I am. But no, but anyway, I knew already. My goodness, he already had several hundred ultras in. But everybody was going to this thing called Mountain Mist, and I thought, well, gosh, I wonder if I could do just 5 more miles.
Yeah.
And so I gave that a try, and I was hooked. Let me tell you, I thought this is great. So the next year, I ran, I don't know, probably 15 ultras and at least 10 marathons, at least that. So then I was hooked. As a matter of fact, I ran Mountain Mist 17 times,
Have you really?
Wow.
Wow.
which is,
Do you get some special thing? I think, don't they give a jacket for
they
like
give a
10
jacket
times?
for 10 and 20 years. And
Right.
it's hard. And as I aged, I just could not finish.
Gotcha.
And that's all right.
Gotcha.
So what is your longest distance so far?
Well, I run hundreds, couple hundreds.
So 100 miles.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Well, you say that's it. That's
Pretty high.
Yeah.
pretty far.
Pretty much the standard.
And again, it would be interesting to see people's comments on this one. After 100, I'm tired. I mean, my body is just, and so the next week, I'm not even likely to do a 50K. I mean, if it's any difficulty at all. So,
Oh yeah, good then to the 50K.
so I like doing a lot of them because I enjoy them so much, and we can talk about that as well. So I haven't done many hundreds, and regrettably, I'm kind of aged out. It would have to be a 48-hour venture for me to finish one at this point, I'm guessing. And, then I wouldn't be able to run one the next week.
I saw you run a lot on these, and you actually run. So I mean, I don't know. I think you can still make these cutoffs.
Well,
I know someone's about to attempt the 70K cutoff at the Cherokee.
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to be there.
I
I'm
love
going
it.
to sign up. I mean, I'm just telling you now, I'm going to do it. I'll do it.
That's right.
I have
Well,
no
yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
I don't either.
So as I'm stalking your ultra sign up here, just tell me if I'm wrong, because I know that some of this stuff wasn't on ultra sign up that you probably ran, but the first 100 I see is the Georgia Jewel.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
won
that was actually like the original Georgia Jewel course, though. Like that's not the new one where it's an out and back, correct? Like,
Well, this one was it was kind of an out and back, but it was, frankly, I think it's a little harder. The old one is a bit harder. And I set a course record for 60 to 69 or whatever it is.
Oh wow.
did you really?
Yeah. Yeah. I've still got, matter of fact, I
Awesome.
might be able to show you here.
I
Well,
like it.
Yeah. But
So
yeah,
you were
it was,
between 60 and 69 when you ran the 100-miler.
I was 69
And
Wow.
you've done
or
double
60.
top.
I was 60 something. I don't know.
You've ran some hard races. I
Yeah.
see Mountain Masochist on here. I see obviously Mountain Mist, double top, Strolling Jim. I mean, that's a race that's hard. Period. Like, I mean, that's right in the middle of summer
Well,
and an open road.
I just finished my 23rd strolling gym.
That is so cool.
That's fun.
Georgia Death Race. Look at you. I like this. You beat my
Yeah.
time for Georgia Death Race.
Yeah. I was a runner back in those days.
How many
Blood
years? Is it?
Rock.
Like what?
He
5
has
years
done
ago?
the Blood Rock loop. The 2013. That's probably a completely different loop. I know that he changed the course every few years.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
what did you think about that? Like, so I would be curious to hear, like, what kind of elevation did you get? Do you remember at that race?
It
Blood
was
Rock?
very difficult. There were ropes. I presume there's still ropes on the course where you have to pull yourself up. Now, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
have
a
to do,
surprise.
I didn't have to use the ropes in those days, but they were nice to steady yourself. So I, kind of help myself there. But
I will tell
yeah,
you, I use the
tough.
ropes.
Well, it's a hard course, but I only did I think the 50K, maybe the 50 miler. I can't remember.
Well, it's pretty impressive. I just love the fact that you've done a little bit of everything when you Stanky Creek. I love the name of that race. Stanky Creek 50K.
Where's that at?
That's in
Bartlett,
Memphis.
Tennessee.
It's still going.
Stanky.
And you've done Blood Rock a couple of times. You've done, I mean,
Yeah.
Mountain Mist. It just keeps scrolling through here. So you like you said, you go back to the same races, which I love. Do you have like certain races that you are just like special to you that you try to do every year?
Well, I have done some like Strolling Jim. You have to do 25 to get the 1,000-mile award. So I'm going to do that as long as I can hang in there. And I'll be the oldest one to do that. That's for sure. My goodness, I'll be 79, which is just hard to believe even for me. My heavens, how could I do that?
Yeah.
That's a hard event. But yeah. But see, back in those days, there were a lot of hard ones. Oak Mountain. I mean, Louisville, Loving the Hills. I mean, these are tough 50Ks, and you put those back to back to back to back, and at some point in time, you just get tired. You're exhausted, and it's best to take a week or a couple of weeks off, from racing.
So in between those weeks that you had them back to back to backs, what did that training look like?
Hey, I'm
Were you
doing
still going?
50 a week.
Oh,
I'm going to do 50 a week, one way or the other.
so is that 50 a week with the
is that
race?
including the race?
Sometimes, yeah, but mostly.
Okay.
Well, like last week, I did 70 miles, but that was including. And matter of fact, I'm on my third week in a row for 70 miles.
So what do your students think about you doing this? I bet they're just amazed, aren't they?
I don't even tell them.
No.
No, they can't grasp it.
I would just walk in there with a belt buckle every week.
Well, it gets me into a long conversation. I don't even tell the faculty. I'm not sure the university even knows that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like he works at the school and it's like one of the most ultra guys out here. They don't even know it.
Runners.
They have no idea.
No idea.
Who's a professor there. Like no idea. They just think, oh, this guy's serious criminal justice.
He's here every week. He's here every day. Every weekend he's off somewhere doing some kind of crazy race.
Mike's just sitting there at his desk thinking, I'm running this, I'm running this, I'm running this.
Well, I've given this a lot of thought. Obviously, I can't keep this up forever because who knows? It might be next year. When you get over in your 70s, I'm telling you, it's every day is a new something. Pains here and this or that or whatever. But I already know that when the day comes where I just can't do another event, I'm still going because I'm going to volunteer.
Yep.
I want to be part of it and feel what the other runners feel. And it is so nice because I have one motive when I volunteer. When the people come in and I see them holding their pants and they're bent over and they're breathing hard and that's the one I want to approach because I want to see what I could do to keep them going. Just, come on, man, you could do it. And all you got to do is make it to the next aid station and let them deal with you. But
hey, he was pretty motivating at Mid-State last year. He's sitting on that little bench, a little chair up there just to come on.
I love it.
I hope to be there this year, but I like to volunteer, and
hey,
I have.
Mike, she's racing it this year,
So's Matthew.
and Matthew.
Yeah,
We're both going to be.
I think there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
5 of us.
Yeah, there's a
Wonderful.
good East Coast Adventures crew going.
Yeah.
So and I'll be there crewing. So you can just come hang out in our tent. You don't have to sit on the bench.
He's
I run
halfway up that hill.
I run that course as well, but I do the Tennessee Mile.
Yeah.
That's in December, and I enjoy that one. So
Yeah, but Becca and John are good
yeah,
RDs.
Yeah,
They do a good job at that race and that
yeah,
event.
they are actually putting in a lot of like work on that property with whatever
Mhm.
the new
they
canopies,
sure are.
whatever they're building. I mean, that's pretty great that they're putting money back into the event, which is
Absolutely. Well, you know, they have a great following, and these guys will come out every week, whether they run or not, and
yep,
they're working on that trail. And
yep,
it's very difficult. We all know that.
yep,
But they're making it runnable and all of that, which is just terrific. So,
yep,
and you know,
You were
folks,
talking.
we have so many new race directors now, and like in anything else, we have some great ones and we have some that are not so great. Mainly because I think they're just starting out.
yeah,
But you know, of course, you guys run races and you've got this down. But just for everyone, after a race is over, people say, "Well, how would you rate that? How would you rate the organization, the aid stations, and all of that?" And that's what brings people back, folks. I mean,
yep,
that's what bring and you get a good aid station, you got good volunteers, happy people, music, motivation, inspiration, all that kind of stuff, and a decent course. And we've got so many now.
yep.
Aren't we fortunate? We can almost run one every week
You sure could
or
every
somewhere if you
weekend.
want to
Well,
drive.
we're pretty fortunate in this area with good RDs, like
Yeah,
truly, like East
we
Tennessee
sure
and
are.
just Middle Tennessee. We've got such good race directors and people that truly care about this sport and this community and try to help.
Yep,
And also just continue pulling new people into this sport. And I think that's what's so important because I mean, as technology gets better, that's kind of hurting the community as well because people stay on their electronic devices and don't get
yeah,
out as much. And man, these events and these races and these training runs, it's pulling people together and bringing back that relationship that could be lost. And you see that a lot in these races, not just our races, races across the
yeah,
board. And
Absolutely.
that's so special. It's so special.
Well, and I see that the front runners, the middle of the packers, and of course the back enders, they have their group and they see the same people. And that's what keeps them going because all of us know that a big part of this whole sport is the friendships that we make along the way
yeah,
and the absolute fantastic people that you meet and the stories they have about their lives. And I mean, how many have you met that, well, yeah, I was 350 pounds 2 years ago and you know, I did this and that, or I was standing on the edge of a bridge just ready to end it. But and here
hmm,
I am now, and these kind of stories are what kind of keeps you going and all that. Just so
yeah.
Well,
That's true.
and I want to ask you another question though. When you were talking about community earlier, and obviously the ultra community is pretty
Mm.
special in itself, but I also want to ask, like, going back to like the 80s compared to now, like you were a road runner, you were a trail runner, and you were an ultra runner. Could you see like a difference in the communities and the bonds and the differences of that whole, like the whole age of your races there throughout
oh
the
no,
years?
yeah, no question about it. Absolutely no question. Uh, our friend Rob is an old time ultra runner. Look at him. Well, I mean, and it's just
Yeah,
terrific. We all love
absolutely.
it. He hadn't
Yep,
changed one bit, and that's what makes Rob Rob. Back in the old day, ponytails, beards, weird clothes, odd colors, beat up shoes, all barefoot or whatever. And but you talk to these folks and you say, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And well, I'm an attorney. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm a doctor. I see. Yeah, and we have that today. You know, that's one of the things that I regret today, and we're all feeling it. Surely you as well as I, is that things are getting expensive.
yes,
And I just hope that it doesn't run off the people that could be really good in our sport, but they can't afford the gas, the overnights, the registration, this, that, and the other. And I think that may be one of the newer elements of our sport, that some race directors are going to have, okay, we understand your situation, come anyway.
Yeah.
We want you here. You have something to add. And so there'll be complimentary kinds of things or something like so. And I'm happy to see we still have a lot of old people, a lot of elderly folks doing the events. And my goodness, Mary, have you ever seen so many females in all these events? They're just unbelievable. It's like 50-50. You would know better as race directors, but so many.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I think Yeti and I know at Georgia Jewel, like they definitely, you can look at some of the stats, and it's starting to get to the place where it's at least 50% female for sure.
I think Gone Loco this year might have been more females than it was males.
I was going to say, I think our races were actually starting to have more female runners than male.
That's amazing.
But to me, that's not even. I love that, but what I love the most is that we have females winning our races overall, and that's what I think is awesome. I mean, the first couple of years we did the 24-hour at the fort, a female has won it, you know, and like
Shell Gray, right?
And Mucci would be one.
Yeah, Francesca has won several times outright. And that's what I think is just so amazing. Is like, there are more and more people and more women getting in the sport, but there are also more competitive people getting in the sport. And I think that's really awesome. And it's not just men, it's women. And the women are starting to raise the bar. And like, I won't throw any names out, but there's a lady signed up for the Cherokee 130K, and I think she's the competition. I know she's the competition, and I love that.
Wait, you talking about Emmanuel?
No.
Emmanuel is the competition.
That's our rap.
Well, Francesca will be running Badwater.
Again?
So she can't be there at this race. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I hope she comes and joins us next year.
Yeah. But it's good to see all those kinds of folks in there, and there are a good number of younger people too. As a matter of fact, Matt, you may have seen that young guy. He was I don't even know if he was a teenager, but he was just
he was 11 years old.
Oh wow!
And he took off. He was flying the first lap. He was leading, and I think like third lap, I finally caught him. I mean, it took me a while to catch him. And then me and him were running, and I ran the whole lap with him. And I was talking to him, like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm doing the 12-hour." He said, "Yeah, my dad's doing it too." But he's back there. So he was bragging that he's beating his dad. And I asked him, I said, "So what's your goal?" He goes, 60 miles. I'm like,
wow.
Well, that is, that's awesome. Eventually he slowed down a lot because he was going out very fast. But it was cool to see that, this is the second ultra or 6-hour race that I've done this year, and both times there's 2 kids, 10 years and 11 years old that are actually out there running. So it is good that the younger people are coming out to the events, because before that it was a lot of middle-aged or older people, and now younger people are starting to say, hey, this is pretty cool. Let's actually go out and do this.
Well, and I got to say though, I love the fact, like, trails more like the rails to trail stuff, Yeti, Gone Loco, and stuff like that. I mean, we got people coming out that are 80 years old to run, and I love that. Like, we have couples coming out. We had a couple come out to Gone Loco,
80-something years old,
and they ran it 2 years in a row, and it's just awesome. I mean, and this guy has a coach. He has a run coach that he runs every week, and he trains for these races, and that is just awesome. I love it. So I mean, kudos to the young people and to the older generation that are, in your 80s running a 33-mile race. I love it.
I love it when I go back to work, and the people in their 60s, they're like, "Oh, when you get my age, you're not going to be able to do this." I'm like, hold on. We put on events, and there's 80-year-olds out here still running. They are? Yeah, they're running 34 miles.
I just had an idea. Matt it popped in my head with Matt talking. This is perfect. So what we need to do is Michael Montgomery and Rob Apple. We need a time where you all hit like these special numbers together. And I've already told Rob this, but I think we just do it together now. We put on a race just for Michael and Rob. It's a big race. And you guys are the shirt and the logo.
Yeah.
And we call it the OGs. And it'll be
There
like
we
the
go.
OG 50K or something. I think it'd be so cool. And we celebrate when you hit 400 and he hits 850 or whatever. That'd be so cool. I'd love that.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to put on a race where it's a team event, just two people on the team, but you have to have 1,200 ultras between you.
Whoa.
Well, I'm out. Call me when I'm
That
dead.
that would only be Rob and I, so we could win.
You would win. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Did you ever run Race for the Ages, Mike?
No, I haven't. I wouldn't mind doing that. But, I'd be so tired by the time I got to the start. Because, there are people there, they're running, they're in their 80s.
Yeah. I
so
raced it, and I thought it was awesome. It was so much fun. So
Yeah. Well, I've threatened to run it a good number of times, but isn't it great? In our state, especially, we have such fine races. And, Memphis has really picked up now. They've got quite a number out that way. And up in Johnson City and up that way, they've got a good number of them. And, of course, Chattanooga is just crazy with them.
Yeah.
And our area, my goodness, you could hit one every week.
Yeah, I'm gonna say East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. We're pretty fortunate, and I mean races keep coming, and I love it. That's the hardest part for me.
Yep.
Is not racing. I love the fact of just running. Like you were saying, like I would run even if there was no races planned.
Right.
But to have a reason to run, I love that. Like I know why I'm putting in the work so that I can go and have that like day where I get to hang out with 100, 200, 300 people and celebrate and high five you and do whatever. And that's part of the reason that, you love being a race director. You don't have to run and you get to do that anyways.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part. And I feel like that's something that just continues to get better in this sport. And that's kind of what I was alluding to in that question is like, do you think the community now is more open than the community was back then?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that's an excellent question. Very good question. I believe it is. Yeah, lots more different kinds of folks coming in. And, of course, 100 miles is the thing right now. I mean, that's just kind of whatever. Somebody runs a 5K and they said, hey, man, I want to do a 100-miler. All my friends are doing them and all that kind of thing. And I'm surprised how many actually do them. I mean, they do finish.
Yeah.
They're kind of beat up afterwards, but they do finish. But
and it's still like a staggeringly low number that actually do 100 miles or even attempt it. The ones that finish, it's even lower. But
that's
it's still like what 1% of the population.
Of the population, absolutely. Well, just think of the number of runs, and race directors sometimes they kind of brag on this and say, well, we only have a 30% finish rate because the course is so hard. And of course, I'm thinking, well, you might want to think about getting a few more to finish. Because it's so demoralizing, as you know. And I've been there before. My goodness, I've got a lot of DNFs. We could talk about that as well. Because
that's a good question. I do want to ask you, how did you handle your first DNF?
Well,
and what was it?
I've got 28 DNFs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 28. Now,
in 1,000 races, that's a pretty good percentage.
Some of them, the weather was just not right, or your stomach is not right. I mean, there's injuries. I remember I was just jogging along right before some ultra, and I stepped in a hole, and sprained my ankle something terribly. Well, I could only run about 5 miles. I had to quit. It hurt so bad. Those things happen, and that's just the way it is. You can't fall apart either. Say, well, that's the way it is, and I'll be better prepared next time.
Yeah.
And you just move on. Or I didn't eat. And of course, that's the big thing. What did I eat the night before to make sure I don't do that again? And frankly, it may have nothing to do with it. But
Well, I
anyway,
mean, I'm looking at your first DNF, and it was a hard one, so I get it. Your very first DNF looks like Iron Mountain.
oh, I love Iron Mountain. I think it's coming up. Yeah, Iron Mountain is pretty tough. Now, I've finished a lot of Iron Mountains, by the way. But yeah.
2 lookouts back.
Mm-hmm.
So there was 2 Lookout Mountains back to back that you didn't finish?
Well, now again, that's a good story as well. That someone, well, and listen here, this is a good topic to discuss. A lot of people go with a group, and you want to run with your friends, the people you train with, and all that kind of stuff, and you want to hang together. And you're both hoping to do well and so on and so forth. Well, when one of them's hurting and you stay with them, you have to make a decision. Am I going to hang with them and risk not making it? And that's what happened on those 2. I waited too long. Instead of looking them in the eye and say, I'm sorry, I got to go because, I need to finish.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what's wrong with that? You both suffer. That's all right. You're both buddies, and okay, that's all right. So it's one way or the other, but you just have to reconcile, because at the end of the day, the next day, you're all saying, "Darn, I got a DNF. Shoot!" And I could have made it, and I just done a little something different, I could have done it, but.
So Mike, I got to ask you this: like, if I'm running a race with Mike and Matt, I'm not waiting on them, or they're not waiting on me.
Nope.
But now, if I was running a race with my girlfriend, that's a different story. If we were a team, so was this a buddy or was this a girlfriend you were running with?
No,
Just
this
curious.
Is a buddy. Hey, and some of them had no buddies anyway. I mean, there were no buddies. There were just it was me. Something happened, and I see it all the time. You do too, especially as a race director. You see this a lot. Even now, after being told 100 times, don't go out so fast at the beginning. You might as well. You might as well talk to. You might as well talk to a tree, because
I never heard that.
No
And
one
they're
listens.
Hey,
No one listens. I listen.
I
No one
listen.
listens. Yeah.
I listen about 1% of the time.
Yeah. So I'm a coach, and it's the hardest thing to coach.
Yes.
It's the hardest thing to coach.
Because you feel
Well,
so good in
what
the
I've
first
learned
13.
all this, even when I'm running slow now, is that if you run steady but slower, you're still going to beat the person who runs out crazy and they're walking at the end, because
Every
they can't
time.
go. And marathons are the same way. These days, you come to mile 21 and it's hard to find somebody still running.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than getting buried in the back end of a marathon if you've gone out too fast. It's rough. So yeah.
Well, you're running a lot farther because you're having to dodge all the folks.
I mean, in all my experience, I don't really know, because I ran one marathon. I feel like I was buried the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think I went out too fast in the first one this year. I just fell apart.
Yeah.
But
there are an awful lot of trail marathons, and I think the ultra community is what pushed that. Some folks just want to do a marathon, and that's wonderful. I have one I was looking at. I've done it many, many times. It's a 3-day event in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And I love the race directors. They're terrific people, and I hope they don't listen to this. But I always tell them, you have a 3-day event, but not one of them is a marathon. So when you finish 3 days, you have nothing. In other words, you've run a 20 and an 18 and whatever else, but you haven't done a
22.
marathon.
That's it. Yeah.
And I would just tell people, you're going to run a 3-day event, have one of them meaningful, a marathon or even a half marathon, something where they can say, okay, I can put that on my record. I've done it,
Yep.
something.
Take notes, David.
And that's another thing. In the older days, now that I think about it, there were more 3-day events. There were quite a few up. Silvermore, I don't know that one up in Arkansas. You run a 50K one day, a 50-miler the next, and a half a marathon the next day, or like that.
Oh, wow.
You know what I think about when you tell me this is I just think about how in the hell does a race director get all 3 days of those courses marked and nothing get picked up or be wrong? Like that's where my head goes. I'm like, no wonder there's not many stage races. That's a lot of work in 3 days in a row.
Well, and another thing is, everybody suffers now from volunteers. They're hard to come by. Now, you all are lucky because we have a state that loves running and all that. But, every one of them, you see it on Facebook or Instagram. Hey, needing volunteers, need more volunteers. And, everybody needs them, especially when your aid stations are like 5 miles apart or whatever. You got to have somebody there, generally speaking. So, but it's hard. And I've noted some of them, I'll be there at 8 o'clock. Well, they're not. They're not there at 8 o'clock.
Well, and that I will say that is one blessing we have, because a lot of the people that volunteer are the same people that volunteer at most races.
Yep.
And honestly, the race directors all volunteer at each other's races. And I love that. Like Tony and Kathy help us, we help them. Brian Gage helps us, we help him. Doug Holder, it's just across the board, and it's so awesome to see. And without that support, a lot of this stuff would never happen. Yeah. And if it did happen, it would be a disaster, because you'd only have an aid station about every 10 miles or 20.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. And I think that says a lot about this community in general, that like race directors aren't worried about helping other race directors. That's a big deal.
That's huge.
It is a big deal. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's across the board, but that's what we have around here. Yeah. That is just truly awesome.
I think this region has that. I think a lot of the Georgia race directors do that too. I think they work with each other a lot. So,
Well, everybody wants everybody's race to be successful. There's no competition in that regard. And, these days when someone picks a date, how difficult, because that you might be knocking somebody else's race out a little bit, cutting in. So, but there's so many of them now. And so
it is.
As a matter of fact, 2 of my favorite races were last weekend. I had to pick one. I've done Ruts Paducah 13 times, and I had to miss it this time to do the Three Sisters, which I've done all of those. So, but anyway,
it's even harder when you try to plan out, like you look at like previous dates for other races.
Yes.
You're like, well, we're going to skip those dates and we're going to move it to this date. And then you put it on that date, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, they got the same date. Yeah. They dropped the same date. It's like, man, you're trying to avoid that because you don't want to. You're trying not to compete with other races because you're like, you want people to go there, then you want people to come here, and then they're the same day. You're like,
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yes. I gotta ask you another question though. I love having like you and Rob. You just sit here and make me think about like now and then, and I love that. I want to ask you this because I wish I would have asked Rob this too. In all of the 40 years you have been running, what is the one thing that has come out that you love the most that you didn't have in the beginning? Is it like your GPS watch? Is it a bag, a running pack? Like, what do you have now that you think, damn, I wish I would have had this in the 80s?
Well, all the technical stuff. Now, this is the truth. If you didn't have a watch, you could still run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you had to run in Converse All Stars, you could probably still run. Uh,
Be
and,
rough.
and and I swear I'm a big believer of this. If you didn't have trail shoes, you could run trails
Mm-hmm.
just fine. But having the internet to look up like
Wow, I love that.
ultra running calendar or any of the other calendar, Marathons USA. I mean, it's wonderful. That is something that you can look at. And you know, Matt, you brought up. I'm like everyone else. I look at last year's calendar that I ran. I keep it on a sheet
Hmm.
right beside me to plan for next year's run. But you're right. People change the dates,
Yep.
sometimes on purpose, sometimes accidentally, whatever. Yeah, having the internet and to be able to look up, and isn't it cool? And of course, when I'm looking at a race like Cherokee, I think, man, I wish I had an elevation chart to look at on this thing.
I got one. Just ask me. I got it.
Well, see, it's very cool to be able to know that. So you can,
Yep.
where can I kind of lay off a little bit? Where can I slow down? Where can I rest a
Hmm.
bit? Where can I speed up? Uh, and all the where the porta potties are kind of cool. I mean, that's kind of nice to
Yep.
know. You know, all that stuff. Now for ultras, you know, it's not as important. But when you're running an urban marathon, you got to know where you're going to pee. I want to just tell you, especially when you get older. But yeah,
You've talked about all the stuff that's changed for the better. Has there been anything that you feel like has changed for the worse in the years that you've been doing this?
gosh,
That's a good
the
question.
only thing is, in the old days, folks, we had rules, and here's one. Here, you asked me the question, and I'm just telling
Yeah. Yeah.
you pass on the left. Period. You pass on the left.
I thought that was like just a golden rule.
That's what I always say on
It
the
is a
left.
golden rule, and sure enough, somebody's running on the left, and they say, "Well, just pass me on the right," and it's hard for me to do that. I think, well,
Hmm.
all right, that's fine. Uh, but we do have a lot of folks that are very brand new, but they're not
Hmm.
reminded who's got the right of way. Hey, sometimes there's mountain bikes out there on the trails. Sometimes there's people coming the other direction.
Yep.
I have run events where there are two events on the same trail. No kidding. Like a 5K and a 50K, whatever. And some other groups running the other way. And of course, they'll tell you, hey, don't look at the yellow flags. That's not us. We're pink. Oh, that which is okay. But now we have so many new folks, and they're not familiar, I guess, you know, with
Hmm.
the rules. And you know, I have a golden rule on all that. When I hear somebody coming up behind me, I know they're running faster than I am. I mean, that's just common sense. So I step off the trail,
Yep.
just step off 1 foot. They all thank you, and you know, and
Yep.
off I go. Some of them will not. They won't
Hmm.
even hardly make an effort to get over. And
Yep.
they think your job is to get around running through the poison ivy. I guess that's what they think. I don't know. Uh, and and I don't know if we need, you know, a new rule book or, you know, as a race directors, I know there's an annual convention, and I forgot who puts it on. It might be TRSA or Trail Runner, whatever. There is a convention, and I always wanted to say, please invite me. Let me give them some tips.
Yeah.
Let me get and here is one. I'm sharing this with everybody out here. I'm allergic to nuts, and I am deathly
Oh.
allergic to nuts.
Mm.
And I will run uh, an entire ultra where every single thing out there has nuts in it.
Mm.
Everything,
Wow.
peanut butter, M&Ms with nuts, pretzels with peanut butter inside of it,
Oh
cookies
man.
with nuts, this, that, and the other. And let me tell you, you eat one, and I've done it several times. That's a couple of my DNFs. I'm out. I'm gone.
Wow.
I'm on my way to the hospital.
Mm.
So either they got to have, okay, nuts are over here on the left, non-nuts are on the right, or something, or people with allergies focus on this stuff, or I don't know. And it's not a big deal because there's such a small percent, maybe 10% of us, and I hear other people talking about it too. But those are the kinds of things for like new race directors that watch out, the stuff you're getting, don't have it all one kind of thing. Everybody
Yeah.
likes something a little different. Yeah. And, pickle juice, hey, that's great stuff. It's fine. But not a whole lot of people, because it's loaded with sodium. You don't even need any. You don't even need any electrolytes. You drink that stuff. Anyway,
I guess you love. When we make a spread out on our races, because we just fill the table up with all kinds of food. So
all sorts of stuff. Well, no, that I love. Well, for instance, last week, I mean, there's no, I tell Tony and Kathy, this is one of the best around because there's such a diversity and all that. And that's another thing. When you're putting on a 50 miler and you have nothing substantial to eat, all it is potato chips and a bar, or some not even bars, jelly beans and all that. I'm sorry. 50 miles is a long way.
It is.
To eat that kind of thing. If you have some ramen noodles or some, hard, I mean, it goes in
Real food, yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, we're out there making grilled cheese, cooking bacon, ordering pizzas.
Yep.
Well, and that's the big thing these days, and it's great. It's just wonderful to have that kind of, and I can't tell you how much the runners love that. I mean, it's just great.
Oh, I know I do. When we do LC down in Georgia, they feed you burritos, donuts, then they'll get you, what else? Pizza, Moe's, more burgers. So you're like, hey, we're eating good all day.
Yeah.
You get your money's back,
but
with the food.
To your point, though, I have ran some races where there was nothing but Lay's potato chips,
cookies,
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and pretzels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I don't want another pretzel. And if I eat another peanut butter sandwich, I'm going to puke everywhere. Cookies,
like, we got getting no real food.
Yeah.
So, and that was in 100-mile race.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Now, for a 50K, frankly, you could probably do without anything, I guess. But hey, you start going beyond a 50K, because now you're talking about lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, a 50 miler I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And potato chips and M&Ms just aren't going to get it. I mean, because you can run out of.
If you have the mixture of Vaseline and M's,
yeah, there you go.
It does hold better in your stomach.
Yeah.
Kind of keeps it pulled down in
there. Yeah. I'm glad I missed that whole era of ultra running. Vaseline M&Ms.
Are you glad?
I don't know.
I'm glad.
I need to bring it back.
Throw up enough.
That's true.
And me grab some M&Ms that have Vaseline all over it. There I go. I'll be throwing up more.
I do love your points, though. Like the internet, I mean, I never even thought about that. Like how much of a game changer that was for improving this sport and visibility and people being involved. And then, just like you're learning, like aid stations and food, if you really think about it, like, and I guess we've just kind of always done it because we wanted to make sure that we had plenty for our runners to eat, even in like Gone Loco. I mean, it's a 55K, but we're still ordering pizzas and cooking bacon and fixing soup. And I mean, and we have special beverages and drinks, and the point is like, you're catering to 125, 150, 200 runners. Not everybody's going to eat the same thing. And that's kind of why we've always just like spread it out. And that way we know that we're covered. But I mean, that is a learning for new race directors. Like you can't just go buy bags of pretzels and Lay's potato chips and peanut butter sandwiches and like water and Gatorade and expect that to make a 50 or 100-mile race. Cause I've experienced that myself. And it was a well-organized race. But the aid stations in general were not enough to help people finish. So the DNF rate was absolutely awful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's nice when you're having a race in July, August, September, those kind of things. it sure is nice to have a little ice in the water.
Ice.
You
Yeah.
I
know?
agree with that.
Yeah,
Hey, or kiddie swimming pools with pineapples
yeah,
and
yeah,
ice. You
yeah,
know, like
Hey, we've done some races in even like late April, and you get to the aid station, and you're like, "Hey, you got any ice?" No. You're like, "What do you mean? It's 90 something degrees out here. Well, you ain't got
yeah,
no ice?
mm,
yeah,
No ice. You got anything cold? We put ice in it this morning, a few hours ago." Like,
yeah.
well, okay, I'm dying out here. I need something cool.
yeah. The first year that we did the fort, I think this is funny. The first year we did the fort, me and Mike were like, we bought swimming pools and we filled one full of ice and put sponges in it. We filled the other one full of ice and just put watermelons and pineapple in it.
Yeah.
And people laughed about that. But now,
It's a staple.
when they come, they're looking for that little kiddie swimming pool full of pineapples and watermelons,
Yeah.
and they use those sponges every lap. And it's like, it was so funny. It was a joke in the beginning, but now it's like, you guys better have the pineapples in that swimming pool, and you better have my sponges in the other swimming pool.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because
Yeah.
it's in July and August.
It's
I mean,
hot.
you got to keep your body temp down, and like some
yeah.
people can only eat fruit, and I never realized pineapple was so popular, but I mean, people just love it.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, all that fruit and grapes. We all know we're eating a lot of sugar out there, lots of cookies and Pop Tarts and donuts and muffins and all that. Well, it's not great for you. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Uh, but fruit is expensive. And of course, now we are seeing a lot of watermelon lately. I mean, which is good because, you're getting two things at one. You're getting your liquid and your substance in there, so
Yeah.
that's great. But yeah, those are the important things that people when they're finished with the event, they may not mention it to the race directors, but they're going to say, "Do I want to do this one again next year?"
They'll mention it to other people. They may
Yeah.
not tell race directors, but they'll definitely tell other people.
I mean, I've said that to David. I gave one a chance, went back the second year, and I said, I'm not doing that again. Because,
Yeah.
the first year you're thinking, okay, maybe it's just a fluke, whatever. Then you go back the second year and you're like, okay, this is the same thing that happened the first year. I'm not, because like you said, everything's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to make your decision like, hey, I'm doing this race or this race. And then you give it twice and it didn't improve. Like, okay, I'm done with that.
Another thing that I think is really important to me, and I may just be, this may just be me, but I don't like it when I go to a race and there's no photographer. Period.
Yeah, that's an
I'm
oddity
not
these
going to be
days.
out there taking pictures of myself. I don't do that. Like, I want someone to at least take a picture of me so that I have something to remember the race by. And I have been to races where there was absolutely no photographer. And I feel like that's like a point that's being missed now. Like, because that's a memory that you're capturing.
I mean, it's even good for race directors. Like, it's good for the advertisement for the next year. Because if you have no good pictures and you're like, hey, I'm putting on a great race, well, I want to see some pictures of it.
Well, the way I always think about it is like, it may be that person's very first race.
David, there's another element to this, is that the family members and the friends want to see those pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And sometimes two buddies will go to do different races on the same weekend, and they want to show the other one. I mean, so a photographer, if you could just get people to wear their number on the front, that would that's a chore.
Looking like a true race director.
Yep.
Yeah. But, one other thing that we haven't discussed about all this is course markings. That's another one. Some of them some are excellent, as you know, and some are about halfway, and some are just flat out not good at all. And those are the ones you get lost 2 or 3 times. You just say, well, I just don't think I'm coming back to this one.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking would be, there is no way a person could get lost here if they're just, not falling asleep on the course. And you all know about confidence flags. Those are the ones when your mind starts wandering and you finally get, let's see, gosh, I don't recognize this trail. Am I on the right? And sure enough, there'll be a flag, even when it's not there, because there's no way to go somewhere else. But
Yep.
that confidence flag to say, yeah, I'm good. It makes you feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, but you know all that.
It's funny. I think that is a common term, confidence flag, because there will be
Yeah,
times I'm running a race and I'm like, I've not seen a flag in 20 minutes. Like
yeah,
I'm on
yeah.
the wrong course.
Or Georgia Joel got me there last year, climbing up those last 18 miles, and I'm like, where are the dang flag at? And then you
Yeah.
get the 50 milers or the 35 milers coming in behind you, and you're like, hey, you saw a flag? I'm like, I ain't saw no flag, but there ain't nowhere else to go. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there it is, we're good. And then
Yeah.
you feel
Well,
better.
but I've heard at the pre-race meal or the pre-race, whatever, the meeting. Well, you can't get lost here because you're not going to go more than 1/10 of a mile without seeing a flag,
Yep.
even if there's no way to get off. And sure enough, you're gone 2 to 3, and you say, nuts, I need to turn around. And
Yep.
but you don't. Somebody didn't do it.
Yep.
There's an art. I've discovered there's an art to putting these flags, and I see it all the time. I'm looking straight ahead quite a distance, and there's no flag. And as soon as I get up to the top of that hill, there's the flag just on the other side. And my thing is, why don't you put it over on this side of the hill so we can see it? You know what I'm saying?
I think I've got for the Cherokee, I've already took off Wednesday and Thursday, and then we got Friday. So there's 3 days I'm going to be out there making sure that me and Mike and whoever else is coming out to mark with us that we are not going to get lost on this course. Even though me, Mike, and there's 2 others, we ran that whole route back-to-back days. No flagging, no GPS.
Huh.
But I knew it, so I knew the course. But it's like every time we get to a section where we return, like, Mike, remember this, we got to put extra stuff here. We get to the next one, Mike, remember, we got to put extra stuff here. And, that's what some race directors don't do. They're like, hey, we put 1 here. Like, no, we're putting enough signs, markings, arrows, everything.
Yeah.
Like you said, you don't want to get out there and get lost or feel like you're off course and you're going backwards and then you're going forward. And you're like, you extra 5 miles going backwards and forwards trying to figure out if you're on the right course.
Well, there's nothing more discouraging than getting lost.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to turn around and you don't know how exactly far you've got to go to find where
Yep.
you messed up. I mean, it does happen. Your mind wanders and all. But just
I've
for,
done that.
well, of course, what I like on serious turns, so there's a 45-degree turn, whatever, I like an arrow. Flags are fine, and we all know about flags. You're going to put multiple flags, but an arrow can't, that's just fantastic.
It is.
You're going to, okay, I'm definitely turning here.
Well, and the thing is it's got to be something that's planned correctly. And that's the other thing is like, we're all going to take off work to go flag this course for, 2 or 3 days in a row. But I think that's where some race directors miss the ball and you just don't have the time. But you can't just plan on those flags being there.
You can't.
You have to go back and check because a lot of times the race directors do flag the course, but some of their flags get blown away, pulled up, moved. And, if you don't check, you have no idea. And in some of these 100-mile races, it's hard to check every spot. So you can't. You can't really truly blame them for it. They may have marked it right, but unfortunately, there's just some people that do not want to race in their hometown or in their backyard, and they're going to move the flags.
I think we got an email the other day asking us about marking of the Cherokee. They're like, is it going to be, marked heavy? I'm like, well, yeah, it's going to be marked heavy. It's going to be marked good, but we still want you to have a GPX or a map because you don't know who's coming up behind you after you mark that. A hiker could come up, a hunter could come up and say, hey, I don't want nobody out here, and pull all those flags up, and you don't know it. You start the race that day, and all of a sudden you get 8 hours in, you're like, hey, they're saying there's no flags on the course. Yeah. And you done it, but...
Well, I've seen mountain bikers take them up.
Yep.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I actually saw a guy take it up. I say, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says, "Oh, did I do something?" He didn't even know. He said, "I'm
Yep.
going this way, and my buddies are behind me. I don't want them to think I went." So,
That's
yeah,
awful.
Yep.
it happens. It
Well,
Yep.
happens.
we're getting to the point where we want to start asking you some questions
Oh,
from
yeah.
the
Okay.
listeners. So, real quick, I got 2 questions I want to ask you, and then we'll turn it over to Matt here. Well, maybe 3 questions. But the first question is: of all of your races, which one is the most special to you?
I knew that was coming, and I don't have a great answer because I've done so well. But what I mean is, I've done so many good ones. And let, before I tell you the one, here is what makes a good race for me. If it's marked well, there are decent aid stations. There's a pre-race something, so in case there's oddball things happen, then we know before we get there. And you've got some decent food and all that. That alone on a crummy course would make me say this is a good event.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one would be maybe it's not marked well and all that, but it's beautiful. And that is, I mean, there's actually something to look at. And some of them are so technical, folks, you can't look up. You look up and you're, as they say at Mountain Mist, you look up, you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say, which one is my best. And I've done, gosh, a lot of them many times, 12, 20 times, whatever. And that doesn't mean they're my favorites. But some of the prettiest ones, matter of fact, I like, believe it or not, and I'm not kidding, I like Fort Frenzy because you run along right by, Tellico Lake right there. I mean, right on the edge. I just love that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's a good one. Others have a really good meal at the end where you can share stories with people past you and you past them, or talk or whatever. A lot of fun there. And it's always great, folks, to be able to hear, where are you going next? What are you doing next? And then, I hadn't even heard of that one. Where is it? And then, you can learn about some new ones. I love all that. But
Mm-hmm.
gosh, my favorite ones. I run out west a good deal. Rob has me beat there, but I've run some. Leadville was very special. It's beautiful. Uh, I've done them in Park City. That, I mean, they're just, you're running by alpine lakes and this and that. I mean, I love all that. But I like running in Tennessee. That's all there is to it. I ran a marathon this year for the first time. As a matter of fact, it was the first year, and it was called Snaketail Marathon. And as a matter of fact, one of our race directors that we know, Becca, she puts that on. It was fab. You have 10 river crossings.
Oh, that's cool.
10. But they're only ankle deep. But anyway, you can. But it's so pretty, and there's cliffs and this and that. Shawnee Hills is a beautiful course. All sorts of stuff. There's mountain climbers right there with you, and Mountain Mist, frankly, has got, because you're going right smack up next to a waterfall, a roaring waterfall. Sometimes, those are the things that kind of make it special. But which one? It's hard to say. I don't know if you've ever done Mystery Mountain Marathon. Fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous because the trails are so beautiful. So I don't know. My answer is I'm not sure which one is my absolute
Well,
favorite.
I was going to say, I think that just in your answer alone explains the passion that you have for the sport, and that every race is kind of special to you because it's something that you get to do. And I can see that as you're talking about it. So I love that. And that's truly, that's truly like the joy that people see in you and Rob and others that are out on the course, is that you're just there having fun. Like, that is you, and that is what you want to do. And And you can see that just in when you're talking about it. And I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
So I think you answered the question without answering the question.
Well, good. Yeah, I'll try to do better on these others.
The next question before we turn it over to Matt is just, why do you run? What keeps you going and what keeps you motivated to want to do this? Like when it's really hard, why do you just keep doing it?
Well, I'm probably like everyone else. There are some health aspects to it. When you get older, hey, my days are numbered here. But it's such a personal satisfaction, especially at my age. When I'm at the end, whether it's a 50K, 50 mile, whatever it is, to say, I did this thing. I got it done. Even if I've done it 10 times before, I did it. And I feel good about myself that I'm still able to do this. The other things are more extrinsic, and that is the friendships. I got friends all over the United States, and you see them. We used to see them a lot, the same people all the time. Now there's new ones coming in and all that. Young or old, male, female, thin, in shape, fit, or fat. Doesn't make a difference. Well, I mean, there's such a variety out there. And black and white. And we're seeing, a good number of African Americans coming into the field, which is good. But they're all interesting. What stories they have to tell, even about their jobs. And I'm one, this is why, I love research. I love learning. And I hear all these jobs and I think, how does this relate to what I can express to my students to make their life a little bit more enjoyable? And of course, I don't tell them you ought to be running ultras, but I do tell them you better find a passion because work is hell.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Life is a struggle, and you had better have a passion that you love, that you can share with your family and your friends, and all of that, because you're going to need it. You work in criminal justice, man. You've got to have this outlet, and this it's mine. And just meeting all these people and what they do and their families, and do you have kids, and are you married, and I love all of it. I want to hear everything about it, all this stuff. And what a great place to learn it when you're out there struggling along. And isn't it great to meet someone who's not doing so well and you come up on them, and before you know it, they're kind of going along with you and they're forgetting all their agony, or you're forgetting yours, and you've got someone to talk with. So those are the kinds of things that I like. I like helping people. That was why I'm in the field that I am. And we're in a sport where you can do a lot of that. You can do a lot of good for folks and give them tips and all of that. And I think we all like that. And I'm always looking for tips. Here, I've been running for 42 years, and hey man, I learn something new all the time. But you pass that on.
Yeah.
You pass what you learned on to someone else. Boy, if I could get people to skip over some of the agonizing moments I've had because I just didn't know it. Isn't it great? I wish we had, and we're not doing this great in Tennessee. We have lots of race directors. We have lots of this. We have lots of potential clients. We have a lot of active clients. Why don't we have a non-race event? There is no race. We're coming there to look at new gear, to talk and hear talks, whether they're podcasts or not, watch movies, all that kind of stuff. And we can charge folks just so we can bring new people in and the joy, frankly, of people listening to a Rob Apple or some really terrific runners who does this pretty well up there at Tunnel Hill. They bring all these fabulous runners in that are going to run world records. And to listen to them talk, and Gary Laz, Gary Cantrell, he is a persona. I want to tell you, the worldwide, the guy's known
Mm-hmm.
is in the ultra world, and to listen to him talk and just shake his hand and all that. Uh, I'd like to see some events like that where we don't actually have to run if we don't want to, but we meet each other, we talk, listen to other people, all that.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
that's
I guess I went on and on that one,
no,
but
and great answer. I loved your answer too. Um,
well, thank you.
I mean, it's that's a different answer than what we've heard, and I
Oh,
love that. So I thought that was a very different view, and I loved it, and I loved you could see your passion in it when you were talking about it, and
yeah.
it just pours out of you.
Well, David, just remember, see, I know I'm not going to win any race, and I'm not likely to come in third or any of that kind of stuff. Now, I am likely to win my age group,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but you see, those days are over. So it's the other stuff now that I focus on. And
Well,
thank you
let's
for
be honest. We're lucky if we even win our age group sometimes. So,
there. You
it's true. Yeah. Well, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him ask you a few questions from the listeners, and then we'll be done. We'll
okay?
quit interrogating you.
Well, I'm
All
sorry.
right. So,
I just go on and on. But,
No, I
oh,
love
you're
it.
good.
Great.
So, we put out on Instagram a few questions, and I'll tell you, we got more statements than we got questions. So, we got a couple that says, heck yes, such an incredible man and runner. We got some that says, another legend, I guess, considering you and Rob Apple. Some saying, I love this guy. He's such a good friend and a good runner. And then we got some more questions here. One wants to know, how did you start running your ultras? How did you find them?
well, again, I was fortunate. I had this guy named Rob Apple who, he knew a lot of where they were. But the fact is, we all subscribed to running journals back in those days. Running World was just wildly popular. They had thousands and thousands of people that read that magazine, and in the back of all these running magazines were schedules. And so if you were a race director, you just contacted a running journal, some magazine, and say, hey, put my event in there. And this is the interesting thing. And David, I wanted to respond to you on this as well. Just think of this now when you don't have ultra sign up or like that. So you see this event and you say, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and sign up. Now, you're not likely to know the course. You're not even going to know the surface of the course. You're not going to know where the age take, nothing. You just say, hey, this is in St. Louis. I can be up there in about 4 hours. Good deal. I'll run this. I'll do that. And you mail off your money and no one gets back to you. They don't write you back and say, hey, you're in. There's too much mail going back and forth. You just say, well, I hope I made it. I hope I'm in. Now, of course, we had telephones, no cell phones, but so you leave your phone number, and if you're lucky, the race director would call you and say, hey, just to let you know you're in the race. We're happy to see you, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And some of them didn't call you because, I mean, these big races, I mean, they can't call 1,000 people or 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a little different back in those days. But I'm kind of evading your question there.
Oh, hey, found them in Runner's Journal, Runner's Magazine, Runner's World.
That was the way to do it. Yeah. And you
Hey, I'll
know
tell you what.
These bookstores don't even have running magazines anymore. Even Ultra Runner, I noticed my bookstore doesn't even have it anymore. Because again, we have the internet. We don't need all that.
I'll be honest. I don't think I've ever saw a running magazine, running journal, running any of that stuff. I've never saw it.
I used to subscribe to Runner's World. I got it
Yeah.
every month. So,
The only Runner's World I see is on Facebook when they pop up an article. Then they every time you click on it, they make you want to try to pay for it.
Well,
I'll back
Ultra
freak out.
Runner was the big one for ultras.
Yeah.
I didn't like them because they kept focusing too much on foreign runs because, you know, they're big, UMTV and all that. I mean, it's great, but hey, I want to know what's going on here where I can go to.
Hey,
I mean,
David.
I still subscribe to magazines. I mean, I can't think of her name right now, but Eat Clean, Run Dirty. I mean, I still, every time she
Yeah,
sends one
yeah.
out, I read it. I think it's awesome that people take the time to do that.
Yeah,
You know, and I just think it's really cool.
let's
And
start
you
a
get to see
magazine.
some local people do it.
Let's start a magazine.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
All
that's
that
not a
time
bad,
we have, Matt.
that's not a bad thought. But, you
See?
know, in these running magazines, that is where, like outside right now is probably the big one, but
Yeah.
that is where you find out all the new gear.
Yep.
And you learn about, well, here is a comparison of 5 watches. Which one is the best and which one does this and that. And those things are, I think, interesting to people. But anyway.
Well, Michael, I believe that's all the
I got
questions.
one more.
Oh, never mind.
I got one
Never
more
mind.
here. It says, you know, you said you've been running for what, 40 something years. What is the trick to the longevity?
Yeah, well, eating well, not overdoing it. Now, you know, folks, I overdo the events. That's probably right. But you don't run 100 miles every week. You don't run hard every day.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. You just got, and your body will tell you, but you got to listen to your body. If you're tired, just take a day off or just walk. I'm doing a lot of walking these days, and I wish I'd have learned that earlier. Walking's good for you. You're on your feet. Hey, you know what? And David, I can point to you on this one. When you're out there running a race, you're directing a race, you're standing on your feet 12 hours, 24 hours a day. Hey, that's just like a run. And you're walking around and you're doing all this is training.
Yeah.
It's called on your feet. Because when you run 24 hours, you have to be able to be on your feet 24 hours, and not
Well,
everybody.
I will tell you the truth. Race directing, we're usually more tired than we are running.
Oh, it's awful.
Oh yeah,
Nonstop.
yeah, both of you. Yeah. Well, even last week, I mean, it was, you know, you're doing a 24-hour event. That is, and it's 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours beforehand and after. Everybody else has gone home. You're still there.
Yeah, days were. Yeah.
Yeah, days. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we have
I mean,
covered a lot
you
of
gotta love it to do it. You know, that's the thing. Is like no one that's doing this is making a ton of money. There are a few race directors that probably are doing, you know, they're making a living off of it, but they're working full time doing it. You know,
You're working more than 40 hours a week. I can tell you that.
And we don't really profit from this at all. We don't pay ourselves. We just do it because we love it. And you know, that's the thing. Is like the people that I have met doing this is way more important than any money I could ever get from this. That's the honest truth. The people sitting beside me, I would have never have met. The person I'm talking to on this podcast, I would have never have met. And to me, that's more important than any money you can ever make from these events. And that you get to take something special from that. And to me, that is the thing that I will always remember, and it will always be so special to me, because if I would have not gotten into this sport in 2018, I would not have met all these amazing people, and I wouldn't be getting to experience this, and I wouldn't be talking to you. And it's opened a whole new door, and there's not a price you can ever put on that.
Right. Well, let me tell you something else for you, David and Matt and Mary, all of you, or anyone else who's a race director, is that you're learning leadership skills that you would have never acquired before. I mean, most of you are leaders anyway, but you have to ask yourself, did I become a race director because I'm a leader? Or is it the other way around? You learn a lot of stuff. And for you're still got a lot of work years ahead of you. And what you're doing right now is helping you in your career. I really believe that. And helping you meet people and deal with people and issues and problems that you'd never face at work.
Yeah.
So it really helps you, I think, in work, but also your work tells you you're a type A personality. Race directors are, because they're all working people too.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing they do. They work,
Yeah.
but they're great. They're great at their jobs too. That's good.
Well, I'll tell you that with all this has helped me with my public speaking and getting in front of people. Because before all this race directing, then we got meetings that we go to and we got to present stuff. I didn't talk in front of people. Hey, I'm like sitting back there, then like not happening. But now it's like, hey, we got city meetings we put on in Madisonville. Like, all right, get up there, talk. Me and David had to do a Kiwanis meeting where we went up there and presented the whole Vol State race that we did. Had to do that. Talking to people every Wednesday on a podcast is, it's in front of people. So it definitely, allows you to open up and actually talk to people instead of just sitting in the back and listening.
There you go.
So you're right. It definitely helps in the everyday in your work life and all that.
Well, you're all the good ones.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I have to give you the option now to ask us any questions. So do you have any questions for us, Mike?
Well, gosh, we've covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah.
And you remember earlier when I said the podcast might go an hour and a half, and you said, "Oh my gosh," and we're an hour and 50 minutes in now. I'm like, see, it goes quick.
Yeah, it sure does. But I want to commend the three of you. You're all excellent runners and directors, and you're only going to get better, because the more experience and the more issues you encounter and all that, the better you're going to be. And look here, you're probably the only ones that are doing a little podcast along with this stuff, which is great. People love this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how you learn things, and all, and how we meet each other. I know for one thing, I'll be looking for the podcast in the future for the other people that are speaking. It'll be fun for me, because I know you're bringing on interesting people and all that. I'm waiting for the first blind, not marathoner. We have those, believe it or not. I'm looking for the first blind trail runner. Mm-hmm. There's one. Now that you find one of those, you'll have an interesting one.
There's a lady, she's blind, and she attempted Barkley.
Oh, wow.
I'm really good friends with the person who was her guide. His name's Christian Griffith, and he guided her on.
Isn't that fabulous? See, I love that story. Now, I know of one girl who has an artificial leg, one of these, looks like, the thing, fiberglass, and she runs trail races.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how interesting to be able to talk to someone. Like, what did they experience and all of that?
Yeah.
But thank you for asking me nice questions, and even having me on. It's just it's a good feeling for me. It makes me feel good, and I appreciate it.
Well,
thanks, Bob.
I mean, you've been a tremendous advocate for the sport. To have over 1,000 races. I would never say this any other time, but I'll say it on the podcast. Like when you were up there talking with Rob, I actually took a picture of you and Rob, and I sent it out to the group, and I said, "Here's the OGs." Yep. I mean, because you truly are like you're a main part of the sport, because you've been in it for so long, and you're such a good advocate for it. And when people listen to this podcast, they're going to see the passion that you have, because you could hear it in your voice when you're talking about these races. And the fact that you can't even pick a favorite race out of 1,000 shows the fact that every race is kind of a celebration, kind of kind of your thing to celebrate and to enjoy. And there's, that's the thing. It's like, it's your place to go. And I always go back to this, but like for some people, this is their moment to where they get to release from everything going on in the world. Yeah. And when they go to an event, it's like their moment to just take a deep breath. They're not really racing. They're there to have fun and to just not worry about paying a bill or the things going on in their life. And that's the most, to them, that is their thing, and that's their gift. And for you, I can tell it's your passion. When you're talking about it, it's just your passion. You can see it in your face. You can see it. You can hear it in your voice. And I love that. And there's no way in the world that someone would run for 40 years and run 30 something marathons a year and not have a passion for this sport.
Yep.
So I just want to say thank you so much for, you've probably helped pull so many people into the sport that you don't realize just by them seeing what you do. And, you know, I know when you started running our events, you know, I was just in awe because, you know, you still run really well after 40 years. And that's so impressive to me. And people around you, I mean, like you just saw the comments, there was no questions. People are actually saying, you know, how amazing you are and how great of a runner you are. And that speaks volumes to who you are and the way that you are out on these courses and these events. So I just want to say thank you from all of us.
Well, thank you three. I really appreciate it. It's been terrific for me. Actually, I want to thank the person who wasn't able to come tonight.
Perfect.
Yeah. This is just terrific. But thank you. And this is just another thing that I'll remember for a good number of years. Thanks a lot.
Well, you're very welcome. Does anybody have any final questions for Michael?
That's all I got.
Yep.
Well, Mike, if you don't care, hang on. We'll end the podcast and then we'll talk for just a second. But thank you so much for being on the Dirt and Vert podcast.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.